Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Reliability Gang podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Steve. How are we keeping, Steve? What's your full name, Steve?
My full name or my second name?
Your full name.
You want the whole thing?
I want the whole thing.
My name's Steve Morris.
Steve Morris. And Steve, introduce yourself. I think people will know where Steve is. He's been popping up on LinkedIn, popping up through mainstream, haven't you, through the LinkedIn feeds?
I hope so.
Oh, yeah. Well, I knew you before you reached out.
Right.
So you guys are definitely doing something right, which is great. Then you obviously reached out to me. But Steve, introduce yourself, introduce kind of what you're doing here. And yeah, it would be great to get a bit of an introduction to yourself.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Will, firstly. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Very exciting.
Absolute pleasure, mate.
Mainstream. So we're an Aussie business. We've been around for 29 years. We have built a community of practice around the reliability hero, around maintenance leaders all over the world. Mainstream's taken many forms. The easiest way to talk about it is that it's the biggest maintenance and reliability conference in the Southern Hemisphere.
Wow,
we get 1,500 people to Mainstream each year, which, you know, if you think about the big maintenance conferences for maintenance leaders around the world, you look at SMRP in the US, they probably 1,000 people. You look at Terry O'Hanlon's IMC conference, maybe 800 people. And then there's Mainstream. 1,500 people, granted we cheat a bit, it's across 2 events.
Yeah.
We do Melbourne each late July, early August. And that's the big Mainstream, what we call the conference, 2 days plus an evening. And we do the summit in Perth, which is a 1 evening plus 1 day event. That's only 5 years old, and that's also 750 people. So
wow, that's a lot of people, Steve.
It's a lot of people. And what's interesting about Mainstream is that tickets are bought. So the way you keep the quality of the individual in the conversation at the level that's peer-to-peer is you sell tickets.
Yeah, it is a ticket-selling event, isn't it?
It's a ticket-selling event.
Yeah.
There's sponsorship, and there's delegate tickets, and there's speakers who come along complimentary because they're speakers, they're telling stories, they're customers. And that's what keeps it at the ratio that it stays at. In Australia, 7 of every 10 people in the room will be a customer having conversations with customers.
That's interesting, because I think that's a slightly different element that we get in certain events in the UK. Elaborate how long you've been doing this. When did it start and how did it start? Was you the idea of thinking of there needs to be something different in terms of how we communicate and network? Take me from the very beginning,
okay.
Steve.
It predates me, so I'll be completely honest.
Yeah.
I've only been in the business 25 years.
Only. Only 25,
but
yeah.
Lisa Irving, who's one of my business partners, had the vision. And she was running a TPM workshop with her dad at one point. And she took a list of 15 professionals who came to a TPM workshop in 1995.
Wow, okay,
and
cool.
she started calling them and asking them what they're battling with. That was Lisa's...
So it kind of came from the struggle of implementation of doing it, and it came from the struggle of how do we do this? How do we do this reliability game? What strategies do we need? How do we get people on board? It actually came from that original struggle of 15 people, essentially, trying to figure it out.
Trying to figure out process improvement.
Yeah.
All leaders who were into TPM at the time, which was the flavor of that month, and obviously is still part of our vernacular and the world we operate in. And she called them and she asked them what it was they were grappling with. And they said, come and see me. And she went and drove around Sydney and Melbourne and met with them and realized that when she finished interviewing them, they actually had about 6 or 7 real issues that were all common. Everything else was sort of peripheral. So she published a short report that said, these are the things you want me to solve. And she tested it with them, and they said, yes, if you could solve that stuff, well...
We're game.
We'd like to be there. What are you thinking? And she went, I don't know, maybe I can find the people who've solved that stuff all over the world. So she started calling into leaders all over. She did reading.
Okay, so it kind of started into... Because, again, this is one thing that's very apparent in the UK, right? When we're going from different... and obviously, we're reliability specialists. We help a lot of companies out. But one thing that we have noticed is... Say, for example, we're working for a company down south with a few of our engineers. We may then be introduced to a company up north, same company,
yes.
Okay, but they don't talk to each other. there's no communication. And one thing I've really struggled to get and wrap my head around is that a lot of companies that have actually solved some of these issues are not sharing this information, even with their own people. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. So the idea of actually saying, well, do you know what? If we've got some professionals that have solved it in other areas, that's how we can actually network from company and peer-to-peer and actually start to bring people together. And that's the solution that you're kind of offering, right, is bringing people together to find the solution. Is that kind of the aim?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we really, for years, we spoke about selling access.
Yeah.
People who've solved challenges you're grappling with.
Right, okay, very interesting.
And I suppose it depends how competitive the environment is.
Yeah.
If you've got the head of sales for 2 motor manufacturers, they might not want to share their best practice tips and tricks with each other because it's IP.
Yeah, I get it.
Heads of marketing. But when you're talking about a mine site that is mining gold and a water utility that's moving and providing water to a population on the other side of the country, if they share what worked best for them, it's a non-issue.
Yeah, I get it. It's not conflict of interest there, really, is it? But everyone's a winner, aren't they, within that social kind of, not experiment, but environment. Even
if they are competitors, we very often will get the head of 6 or 7 major mining businesses, top of the food chain, sitting in a conversation with each other, sharing how they think differently about how they're employing people who are into.
Oh, really? So they will speak to each other.
Absolutely. There's only
that's astounding
positive to be gained by tapping into the collective wisdom of an ecosystem. And so, while Mainstream began as a little research project of leases, turned into a conference.
Okay.
It's actually become much more than that. So back to the answer. Mainstream's become a year-round community of practice. And that's the kind of thing people say as a throwaway line. We're not a conference, we're a community. But we are.
Yeah.
We've got 5,000 people already in the online community. We've got a publication that comes out every month. We've got a platform that people meet in and download content through online that people are members of. We've got a conference that runs 3 times a year, and we've got research groups. And if you look at what I'm doing in the UK right now, I'm here to build community. So last night, we had 28 leaders in maintenance from cross-industry, some serious players and some serious vendors in a pub, having beers,
having a drink,
having a nibble.
You picked a good environment for that, Steve. I can't lie.
I mean, isn't that the epicenter of English culture?
Have a beer and you know what I mean. Down the pub and try to figure out problems. You know what I mean.
Pub, chicken wing, and
a beer. Then you're ready to share all of your knowledge, aren't you? You know what I mean.
Well, that's exactly what happened last night. In fact, this tour that I'm on, and the one I did 3 months ago, was about bringing community together. So that's not monetized. That's not part of Mainstream's revenue stream. That's, if anything, I mean, if you look at it in pure cold fact, is a cost to the Mainstream community organization. But it's a cost that's worth bearing because it's about showing people the power of sharing ideas. And
I love that.
I'll give you the number of people that came to me at the end of the night last night to say, mate,
what a great event.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had such, and we orchestrated some dialogue. So there was actually some formal conversation in groups of 6 or 7. And then there was just freestyling and having a chat in the pub.
Yeah,
and we made sure that there was a balance of those 2 things. And we threw in a few topics. Like one of the big topics that came out of our research is this notion of trying to break this reactive firefighting cycle and become more predictive and more preventative and drive towards reliability rather than, and it might be as broad a topic as we KPI. We pay more to the guy or lady who comes in and solves the problem in the nick of time. We go, you're the hero.
We put a cape on them, don't we? And we give them lots of praise as well.
How do you break that cycle if you're really hunting for long-term reliability and sustainable reliability? How do you break that from a cultural perspective? And there was a half-hour conversation at 4 tables of 6 people going for it. And I loved watching them talk because penny dropped for a few and someone went, hey, just say that again. How did you get them to do that? And you could just see the cogs turning. And when I say we're a community of practice that is year-round, we run research groups, we run chapter meetups, we have an online community, we publish publications, and then we monetize 3 conferences. One in Perth, which is primarily a mining-centric conference because there's so much mining in WA. one in Melbourne, which is sort of cross-industry, people come from all over the world, and as of next month,
in UK, yeah, which I'm excited to be there. You know, like as well. One exciting thing to be able to announce, really, on this podcast as well, was that I am ambassador for Mainstream. We had a great conversation with Steve, and I just loved what it stood for. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't do many kind of deals with many people in terms of affiliations, because we kind of run our own Reliability Gang podcast and have our own community. But when I spoke to Steve, it made so much sense, because both business kind of goals aligned quite thoroughly. Do you know what I mean? And it was quite uncanny. So we're really excited as well to be kind of, you know, working together to a degree, just to be able to give more awareness to the industry, and also be able to say, do you know what, reliability is not just one little thing. It's lots of different other things that can be shared, and there's a lot of knowledge out there that can help people. Because right now within the industry, I think we need that help, Steve, if I'm honest. Do you know what I mean? In terms of where we're at. For yourself, obviously, you've had a lot of conversations. You've had a lot of dialogue between people and experts within this industry. You've had a lot of guys on research teams and stuff like that. What do you see in terms of the differences between the UK and Australia?
Gosh, that's a great question.
Yeah, and it might be a little bit different. I'll give you much time that you want.
Very careful how I answer that.
Yeah.
No, I you know what? There aren't any differences. If I were to pick a horse, I'm going to back in answering in one way and just put my, you know, go behind an answer and say I'm sticking with that one. I would say that, look, you can talk about whether one country's 5 years ahead of the other in terms of this or that technique, but I don't think that's the point. Everybody's a human. You know, the truth is this whole game is about people.
Of course, yeah.
So whether you're 10% better off from a process perspective, or you've adopted 20% more technology, isn't that significant relative to the people, leadership, the culture piece of it.
So would you say that there's no difference in culture between these countries?
Yes, I'd say that the Aussies have probably been working at this preventative, predictive bit for longer, would be my guess.
That's interesting.
But there's no difference in a bunch of humans who come into a workforce because they love working with their hands, because they want to be in the trades, because they want to be technicians, because they love to be...
They love to fix things, don't they? You know,
fix things, and how they get led and how they get taught. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that sets Mainstream apart is our research, which you alluded to earlier. And it all began with Lisa doing a research project.
Yeah, 25 years ago.
It's become our secret sauce. 29 years ago. She did it in 1995.
Wow, okay, yeah.
In fact, Mainstream turns 30 in Melbourne in July.
Wow, okay. 30th anniversary then.
Massive party.
Incredible.
And there are people who will be at their 30th next year.
Oh, okay. So people read it from the very beginning.
Their whole career.
It's spanned out the whole,
It's not just spanned Mainstream. They've changed jobs on the back of Mainstream. They've met people who've employed them. They've become consultants. They've picked up gigs. They've learned what they've learned. And Mainstream's been a thread through that whole story for them. So it's this really powerful environment. But where I wanted to go was that when you run research with, as we did for the UK research paper, which if people haven't read, they should do on the Mainstream community website.
Make sure you read that.
It's downloadable. It's for you. It's a gift. It's something that a lot of people have consumed.
What we'll do, we'll link that in the podcast comments here, so you can actually have a look at our research, because it's really, really interesting. Because one thing I do like about you guys as well, you're almost finding this information that people seek, and you're putting a lot of work and time and effort, and it costs money to do this, guys. Like, research isn't just something that pops up on your screen. It takes time. It takes a lot of, evaluation and a lot of sources to be able to create documents like this. So guys, utilize this stuff. It's there for you to be able to use. If you're within the industry, or you're a reliability professional, or you're a maintenance manager, it is definitely in your remit to read this stuff. You know what I mean? So sorry, I just thought I'd plug that for you there, bud.
Thank you. Thanks for the plug. So we went out and we interviewed 200 heads of maintenance, and we asked them, what are you challenged by? And we ran 6 think tanks, face-to-face and online, where we had 15 heads of maintenance in each of them. And then we did another 100 one-on-one interviews. So no reading ChatGPT or Gartner or McKinsey reports to say this is what they say.
This is face-to-face.
Mouth, face-to-face. And when we aggregated it, we found 10 topics. And for me, the most telling, and going back to your question about what's different, the most telling set of topics is that engineers are generally quite good at engineering.
Yeah,
as it
okay.
turns out. They don't say, my biggest problem is I can't understand how to think about overall equipment effectiveness. I don't know anything about RCM. I wish I was better at TPM. They don't say those things because they trained in that stuff. What they say is, I don't know how to get the head of finance to give me money for something that's so obvious to me because it's such a significant risk in our business that if we don't do it, the impact could be catastrophic. And I don't know how to get them to give me the money because they want to give it to the sales guy or the marketer or the project person to build new plant or whatever. And that's because they haven't been trained in selling. Okay, so take communication as a topic, or the capacity to sell a vision to get this funding for this initiative. These are the things they're asking mainstream to be about. How do I get better at that? I'm good at engineering. So that's, when you ask what's the difference is you've just got a bunch of humans who studied or are sort of oriented towards fixing stuff, grappling with building a culture, selling a vision, communicating better. I'm a supervisor. I used to be a trade on the shop floor. I've now been promoted to supervisor. Management expects me to behave in a different way to what I always was expected to behave, but my mates still want to have a beer at the pub and they think I'm changing.
How do we be a chameleon?
These two forces. These are the people aspects, the cultural piece that mainstreamers always seek to address. Now, I'm not saying it's not a conference focused on OEE and work management and planning and scheduling and everything you would imagine a maintenance conference is going to be about. Of course it is. It's also a conference focused on adopting AI and new technologies and innovation and IT-OT integration and a CMMS that works and history that's being recorded and data that's accurate and so on, right?
Of course, yeah.
But it's always really cared about people. So I'll say it one more time. What's different? Nothing, because we're all humans grappling with the same stuff and we've solved this all over the world, or we've helped be part of a solution. The why, the reason that you and I have hit it off, and the reason why you looked at our business and went, we don't align with a lot of people, but shit, this sounds
good. yeah, definitely. Hence why we're here now, right? We're having these conversations,
We have a similar why. At the core, we want to take the reliability discipline, these reliability heroes, as we call them in our podcast, which is called Reliability Heroes, and we want to showcase that without them, industry would crumble, I suppose. These are the people who keep the lights on. These are the people that keep industry happening, and they do it quietly and in the background, and you don't know they're there when they do a great job, like a good referee in a sports game.
Yeah.
And we want to support them because they deserve our support and they deserve the kudos.
Yeah, I agree.
They do. So, that's at the essence of what mainstream's about. So I hope that answers your question.
No, that's an incredible answer. In terms of mainstream, obviously you started off in Australia. When did you start to actually know we're onto something here? This is starting to become really successful. When did you have that first inkling? When did you start, Steve, in terms of where you were, and what did you do before that, and what made you think, do you know what, this is it for me. I really want to push this. I really want to move it forward. Do you know what I mean? At what point did you come into the team and then actually realise, this is going to be a hit? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A success.
So my journey with Lisa and Chris, who's her husband, and they were in the business initially, was about 4 years after they began. I happened upon, I've known Chris my whole life, but I happened to start doing some work for them and realized they were onto something seriously impressive because they were having such an impact on so many industries, and people at very senior levels were taking the work very, very seriously, and it just was pretty cool.
Wow.
I was in sports marketing, so I was swanning about, having a great time, involved in rugby and cricket and
okay, cool.
I was a player agent. I did a lot of cool stuff, but I was drawn to the impact they were having. And so when I came back into the business after having spent a 6-month period doing some work as a backpack through Australia, eventually I came back 25 years ago. And the whole idea was, how do we take this recipe and
make it bigger?
And so over time, we built 30 different communities. Mainstream was 3 of them. And we built mainstream in New Zealand, and we built mainstream in South Africa, and we took mainstream to the US. But we were building other things alongside it. We built a whole slew of technology events using the exact same recipe. So to answer your question, it was obvious that if you took this thing, that this embryonic notion of helping maintenance leaders share best practice with each other with the way we do it, because the way we do it's quite unique, and I'll tell you about that too. If you could take it to New Zealand and do it exactly as well as you could do it in Australia, and then you could take it to South Africa and do it there too, well, then you're onto something, because all these people will say they've got different challenges. Some are in oil and gas, some are in manufacturing, some are mining, you know, and yet they're all the same. They've all got the same problems. And once you can work that out, and you can work out how to understand exactly what they need and then give it to them in the way that they need it.
Obviously, your transition was like from sports, you know, agency and all that. What was it about reliability that you fell in love with? Because us reliability guys are a little bit weird. I'm not going to lie. We really geek out on this. It's a bit of a niche thing within the industry. We know everyone who they are and the ones that are really passionate about it. But for me, it's weird because I didn't realise I loved it until I was in it. And then when I was in it, I loved it. It was a weird kind of pull that reliability brought into me. And I can't even explain why I'm passionate about it. I just am. It's just a thing. When you changed over from like sport, it's very different to reliability. What was it that pulled you in?
Salt of the earthness. I loved how honest these people were. These engineers.
Interesting.
They were earnest,
sincere,
honest and sincere, and genuinely trying to solve things. No glitz, no glamour.
Not looking for the clown. Not looking for
They were just happy to do it and do it well, and they were disenfranchised. Like they never had a voice as well. They were doing it despite the fact that the business was calling them a cost center and giving them less money next month, less resource next year, more
cutting costs,
and yet they were still doing it. They were doing it on the sniff of an oil rag, and they weren't. I mean, I won't say they weren't complaining about it. They were complaining to us.
Trust me, they probably were complaining, but they were still there. They were still
keeping the lights on and keeping industry running, and it's that honesty of the maintenance community and the reliability community that's very endearing. And it makes you want to help. And we've sort of become part of the fabric now as well. So it's, you know, we always said, even when we had these other communities, some were HR, some were legal, some were a bunch of lawyers, some were technologists. We always said to each other, but they're not our favourites. The maintenance guys are our favourites.
I love that. The sincerity of people is I think it is quite endearing, and I think that kind of taps into, again, what mainstream for me, what it's about, when it's about people.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not just about people. It's also about the information and the value that people's knowledge and what they know can bring into one certain place. How do you make an event so you bring this knowledge to the table where all the industries can benefit from it? Because it must be a bit of a challenge, you know, bringing so many. How do you logistically think out a strategy to say, well, do you know what? We want to do the event, for example, in the UK. How do we build this in terms of making sure that we get the right people involved and also have a good balance between, you know, customers talking on there and sharing that knowledge? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's actually entirely the right question. It's the difference.
Yeah.
So you do it inch by inch. You do it
step
call
by step.
By call, by conversation by conversation, individual. You speak to someone and he goes, you've got to speak to Will Ocean. You speak to Will Ocean and he says, you've got to speak to Richard Jeffers. You speak to Richard, he says, let me connect you to my mate Phil White. And it just grows. Every conversation you say, if I were able to help with this, what do you think? Oh, I love that. You should do more of this, you should do more of that, and you've got to talk to Joe Blow. And it
generally grows as a networking.
Piece by piece. But so that's one of the answers, is you do it inch by inch. We used to make prescribed reading or prescribed watching Any Given Sunday with Al Pacino. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, and if you haven't, you absolutely should. There's the most beautiful speech about inch by inch around American football in that movie, and that's always been the.
I love that saying though. I love I'm here for these gems as well. You know, these little.
Well, check this movie out. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, nice.
The speech is like
it's like a changing moment. Oh my
God!
Really is. Yeah,
it's as good as Scent of a Woman. Hoo-ha! If you've seen that Pacino speech, but The other answer is, once we've run the research with real people and published this research paper like the one I was talking about, we then hold that up as true north. And that becomes the blueprint for the conference. And we then go hunt for storytellers who have solved each of those topics or sub-bullet points. Sometimes they've solved a whole category, sometimes they've solved 3, sometimes they've solved 1 bullet. But we find them, again, call by call by call. So we hear that someone's doing incredible work at Toyota North America, and we speak to them and they go, no, actually that guy moved on, he's now at Mars, confectionery, and we find the guy and he says he'd love to come and speak. What he did was he managed to get budget for initiatives that were hard to get because he came up with a playbook. And he'd like to share it with other reliability leaders. So you bring him on the agenda, you buy his flight, you get him to write an abstract. And the thing about being completely independent is that, and that's the other part of our secret sauce, we don't have any barrow to push. So we're not going to try sell a software. We're not going to try fit into a broader conference landscape. We're just doing something that's unashamedly what it is, and we don't have any agenda. So we can find the best stories because they're just the best stories, but we stick to all the speakers must be customers. So one of the things that stops conferences from moving from good to excellent is they go where the money is. And when the money is with the partner, with the vendor community, then what follows that is it takes a couple of years and they'll break their own rules about who can speak. And then eventually you blink and you watch 10 years later and you've just got partners all over the program. And I'm not saying they don't know as much as anyone else. I'm just saying... It
almost comes a competition, then, for attention.
Exactly, it becomes quite salesy, and the customers tell us they want, very happy for our sponsors to speak, but they want our sponsors to put a customer on the stage and talk through the lens of the customer.
Yes, not the lens of a sales kind of opportunity or the lens of a CMMS system or the lens of a supplier as well. Because, I think when you've created that environment where there's nothing to sell, especially in engineering, because I think people just inherently, especially in the UK, are very pessimistic about people trying to sell them anything. It's just our culture.
It's global.
It probably is global as well, but especially in the UK when it comes down to like this saying, whenever you type anything in, people purposely miss the first 2 ads because they feel like even though it has a solution to them. But what I think mainstream brings is that it's not about that. It's about real stories from real people.
That's it. So that's what you do. You resist the temptation to get all the money from the partners.
Of course, yeah.
That's why you sell tickets, because then you have the right to not... If it was all vendor-led and you ended up having vendors all over the program, you would erode the product over time.
Yeah, it wouldn't be what it is.
Our partners don't mind me saying this because they agree with me.
No, I 100% agree.
So you talk to any of our sponsors and they're excited to put a customer on stage talking about warts and all. This is a problem we had. This is how we solved it. Part of the solution, not all of it, was this partner's good work, but we didn't solve everything. We've still got this to fix. And they tell a story that people can relate to in the audience. It goes back to that notion of authentic, honest storytelling.
Yeah.
And so I think what makes mainstream unique is that you will find all the content is delivered by customers. So it's end users talking. And then we're also not shy to bring in the best from all over the world. Like, to us, that's part of the charm, is that you can listen to, for example, we're bringing in Pareya Parashar from Woodside Petroleum, who's the head of reliability for Woodside, which is the biggest oil and gas business in Australia. And she's got a brilliant story.
Wow, yeah. Really looking forward to some of these.
Drew Hellier from Horizon, which is the biggest train network, rail network that moves all the minerals up and down the coast and to the ports. And he's responsible for asset reliability and large capital projects. And he's coming to talk about how they fixed some challenges they had. So we'll bring people like that, and we're bringing in a chap called Ron Rieger from Mars, who's the head of reliability of Mars.
Yeah, that's really interesting because we do a lot of work with Mars in Kings Lynn, where we are. So
Kings Lynn, that's where Chris Hallam lives.
Yes, it is where he lives. So yeah,
really remote.
Yeah, so Catherine, shout out to Catherine as well. She's a technical lead there. Was like, oh wow, this is great news that I talked to her about it, and she was like, oh, this is amazing. So, unfortunately, one of the other guys couldn't make it. Was interested in coming as well, but obviously down to work commitments in terms of the mainstream event. But I am talking to a lot of customers about it, and they're very interested. They find it very interesting. Do you know what I mean? They find it very, very refreshing, and I think they've not seen anything like it before. And also, this is another question that's kind of got me in my mind as well a little bit. These reliability professionals, like you said before, they've never really had a voice, right? They've kind of done these things. They're kind of unsung heroes. They're kind of heroes that have been hidden from the world. Do you think what you're doing is putting them on a bit of a pedestal, giving them a bit of a big up? Because do you know what? If I was someone like that and I've been doing all this great work and no one really knew about it apart from obviously my company, isn't it nice sometimes to have a bit of a boost to say, this is what I've done? Do you know what I mean? And have a little bit of, I don't know what you'd call it. A little
honestly,
bit of,
honestly, no bullshit, the best part of my job and our job. I mean,
to give someone a platform.
I remember a man standing at Mainstream in Johannesburg after year one who came to me and was in tears saying, no one's ever listened to me before. And he told his story about his little area of his world.
He's so proud of it,
He was so proud of it. He fixed some stuff and people heard and they asked him questions and they were interested and he was in tears. He said,
that's incredible.
I've never been seen. I've never been heard.
With that, and that's what I do think. I do think a lot of these reliability professionals, maintenance managers, without them, what do we have? It's such an important role. Do you know what I mean? Especially now when energy prices are rising, economies are changing, parts are hard to get in the UK now because of Brexit and all of these other constraints and these difficulties that are happening.
Yeah.
We have to change the narrative in the way that we're doing reliability. We're almost being forced to do it because if we don't, there's going to be a huge implication in terms of how effective them plants are running. So now more than ever, we need people to be able to not glorify the job, but actually make this job attractive to have. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I don't think it has been for many years. I don't think people really understood what reliability engineer even means, let alone, you've got maintenance managers and maintenance engineers and stuff, and their role is very important to the reliability function. But again, people have not really ever understood what it is.
Yeah.
And people that are, fixing things have usually had the hero culture of getting that dopamine response of, I've done something, I feel valuable. And now the reliability engineer's job is to be able to almost do that in their way to say, oh, I prevented that from happening. Yeah. Now that needs to be kind of put into a pedestal. But again, until we start talking about it, the culture won't change.
Yeah.
So things like Mainstream, I suppose, are giving people that good feeling about some of the problems they've solved and almost changing the narrative on what hero culture actually means. Because all we need to do really is shift it to this, and then people are going to want to be a part of it, if that makes sense.
It's very powerful when people realize they're part of an industry.
Yeah, and a group of people.
It actually isn't as intuitive as you think. Like if you think what we do, we've recently, in the last 2 years, become part of a media owners industry where people who own conferences and magazines and what have you come together. And you sort of have this epiphany like, oh, we're actually sort of not just in a vacuum operating on our own doing one thing. We're part of a group of people who are making this happen all over the world. And it's powerful. And I think a platform like Mainstream and other conferences give it that voice. There was two things I wanted to say that I thought of. The one was, industries are ebb and flow. So if you talk to the guys in automotive right now, and I spoke to one last night, they're grappling with, let's say, tariffs with the US. Luxury British cars going to the US, and they anticipated producing X number, and they're producing less than that because, it's
the push and pull in tariffs,
depressed market because of the tariffs. You talk to the guys up in Aberdeen, like I did on Monday night, and oil and gas and the taxation. One company was telling me they did like 100 million. They did $1 billion in net profit and paid 109% tax and lost 19 million as a result.
What? How is that even possible?
I don't know how it's possible, but this is what the man was telling me. And they seem very depressed up there in Aberdeen that, it's all coming to an end and Aberdeen's going to change shape again. It used to be fisheries and textiles and then it became oil and gas and...
Then that took over
and it's going to change, And so while this is all changing and people are going, where's my crust going to come from? Where am I going to work next? When you can bring people together and say, yes, cyclical cycles in your industry, but you're actually in a much bigger industry. Yes, you're in oil and gas, but the truth is that green, clean energy that you could invest your time and effort into.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the beautiful thing about reliability. It works everywhere. It's you might be in that industry and you know what? We can't control as human beings what happens in these events. A lot of external things happen and a lot of unfortunate things happen in certain industries. But one beautiful thing, if you are involved with reliability in general, you're going to have a job anywhere. Do you know what I mean? It's just about applying the different techniques to another industry. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people also have to recognise and realise. We are in a very beautiful part of this industry now. And now the future for the next 5 years for reliability is so bright. That's what I keep telling everyone. Yeah. We're in such a bright kind of place. But another thing for me was really alarming is we also do an ARP e-course, and it's a Mobius course, and it's very good about roadmap and everything. But Mobius did some research, and one of the things was that within the UK alone, that only a very small percentage, under 10%, have actually got any official reliability training, and that can be any training. It's not just their training as well. If you look where we are and how many people there are out there and how many people haven't been trained, look at what the next 5 years, 10 years is going to be able to bring. We are actually at the start of the revolution now, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at our research, 2 of the 10 topics in our research is about the changing landscape of the workforce.
Right.
And this is driven by age. We've got a massive,
of course, yeah. A lot of people retire. Yeah,
a lot of people retiring are going to take all this knowledge out the door with them.
Yep.
And then we've got technologies that are changing so rapidly that in 2 years'
You've
time,
got to keep up. Yeah.
10% of the jobs that are going to be available in 2 years.
Not going to be here.
You have heard of today.
Yeah, it's just not going to be here.
Yeah. So there's so much flux that we are on the precipice of the need for major change. And so just back to mainstream, all those innovations that, I speak about all these customers sharing their stories of how they fix things, but we've also got these innovation theatres all over the show floor. So as you walk through the vendors and the partners and you go talk with them at their booths, there's also 2 or 3 innovation theatres where every 10 minutes during the breaks, there's another piece of tech being shown. So
that's pretty cool. I like that.
Very cool. So
yeah.
So the partners do get a voice. They get a voice through their customer, or they get a voice by showcasing innovation that they bring into the market. And you put on a silent disco headset and you catch 10 minutes while having your lunch or having a drink, and then you move on and you carry on in the expo, or you watch the next one. There's 24 of those across mainstream, which is now 6.5 weeks away. Mainstream.
Well, I know, yeah, and we're going to be there. Can't wait for the event and everything like that. What can we expect from mainstream? It's the first UK event.
Yes.
It's a big one for you guys. The UK is a huge market in terms of reliability and what it means. What does this mean to you guys? This UK event, what does it mean?
Well, it's a massive opportunity for us. We've been talking to English and Scottish speakers who've come out to mainstream over the years, and there've been many of them who've said you've got to come and do this.
Really?
I came out last year and I went to Main Tech and I went to the Institute of Asset Management conference last June, May-June 2024. And I thought they were both terrific, but they weren't what we're doing. There's something different to that.
Very different.
One's focused on sort of strategic whole-of-life asset management, asset strategy, which is great, and it's got a place, and that's why they're successful. The other is a trade show for Manufacturing Week, which is embedded in something else. It used to stand alone. I think it got acquired, and now it's within that Manufacturing Week.
Yes.
We're talking about taking only the maintenance piece of the pie, the reliability piece of the pie, and magnifying it. So that's all there is. It is 100% focused only on that world. It's not part of anything else. So the first thing you can expect is complete and utter focus. But the opportunity is massive for us because we believe mainstream will start this year at about 300 and I'll take a wild fly at a number, 330 people will be there, maybe 350 if the ball bounces the right way. But year 2, it's going to grow to a bigger event. It'll grow possibly to a 2-day event. I've looked at venues in Manchester just today. In fact, I was at Old Trafford. I was at Manchester Central, which is very cool.
Manchester's a lovely city, by the way.
It's a great city.
Yeah, it is.
I spent the night there last night, as you know, and looked at a lot of venues. We were in Birmingham for year 1. We took a flyer that Birmingham was the right sort of
Birmingham's a great place, and I think a lot of people go there because it is central. Yeah. It's essential to everything, isn't it?
Yeah. So we started in Birmingham. So what they can expect is they show up on the 20th, the evening of the 20th, and we have for the VIPs and the steering committee and the speakers, we have quite a big welcome for them. So that's quite exclusive. And we've also got a brilliant keynote in that session for them that's just for them. And it's unbelievable. The guy's the chief operating officer of a business called Climeworks out of Iceland.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And I'll tell you about that later if we have time, but stunning. So he'll do a quick 20-minute cameo as well. They're doing amazing work. And then we go into the welcome drinks, which is our jumpstart. And we've got a sponsor for that. That's One River, a software vendor who sponsor the jumpstart. And that's in the Past Museum, which has got Spitfires and old trains and racing cars.
Bit of history in there.
It's amazing. And it's like an homage to the Industrial Revolution, which happened around Birmingham, Manchester, the middle of England. So that's what we kick off with on night 1, just a welcome drinks, 90 minutes cocktail party, really cool, all included obviously. And then we wake up and it's an early start. So 7:30 the conference kicks off. Straight in because
down to business, man.
Guys is
that's late.
Through their day.
That's late,
That's a lie. So
7:30. Oh, God, come on, at least 6 o'clock.
There's tons of content, and we finish with the main cocktail party, also sponsored by Navium, who used to be BPD Zenith, the system integrator around Maximo. Navium are sponsoring the main evening cocktail party, and that will run till about 7. So it's a 12-hour day. Everything's included in your ticket price, from lunch and tea break and coffee break and all the drinks and all the canapes and all the music and all the content. So that's what people can expect, a jam-packed day of 5 tracks of content. So at any moment in time, you get to choose between 5 storytellers, 4 keynotes, and a lot of good food, and a shit ton of networking and conversation.
And good fun and proper networking. Proper networking. Because I think this is proper networking.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of events, Steve, and I get invited a lot of the time. But when you go there, it's not authentic. You can just feel it's not. There's sales agendas behind it. There's a lot of things here. The one thing that I do know about mainstream as well, guys, and this is something I'm putting out there as well. I've not even been to one of these events yet, but I can feel like I know what this is about, and I guarantee that I will be proven right with my first assumption. Well, I'm pretty 100% sure that will happen. But is the authenticity of something of what this can bring? Do you know what I mean? So if you are a maintenance professional, you're in the reliability game, have a look at the website. We'll link it below, and have a look at some of the speakers speaking at this event. Do you know what I mean? These speakers know what they're doing. They're the highest kind of, platform within their sector. And these guys have had a lot of experience. It is in your nature to be able to go to your head or whoever it is above and say, I need a day off for this and I need you to pay for it, because the knowledge I can bring back, to what we've got is not just one person's knowledge. It's hundreds of different other people. Do you know I'm not going to be there to be able to potentially give them some knowledge as well. Real quickly before we end the podcast, Steve, talk about the community. So Mainstream have an area where you can log on, talk about that community and what can be done, talk about what you're doing to promote that, have a chat about how people can set something up online and also communicate with people through the networking channels of Mainstream community.
Absolutely. So I'm so desperate to comment on something you just said.
Oh, sorry. You can do that first if you want. Do that first. That's fine.
All right. I'll come back to it. So the community is free of charge. You jump online at mainstreamcommunity.com. You go to our community section. You join now, and you fill in your details, and you're a member. And once you're a member, you have an entree to all the content from all the Aussie stuff that gets published, all the conferences. We have a monthly podcast. We have a monthly webinar where we get the best of the best from all over the world solving particular things live, where you can ask them questions. Brilliant webinars. We're doing 2 a month at the moment. It's all there and it's all yours and there's no strings attached, and that sounds like a bullshit story, but it's true. We've grown 5,000 people over less than 2 years into our community, and there's also groups you can join, and there's cool stuff that happens, like 4 or 5 different water utilities showed up in mainstream for 5 or 6 years in a row. And about 2 years ago, they said, do you guys have a place where we can meet online? And we went, sure, jump onto the community. We'll build you a closed water utility group.
And these groups are growing, aren't they, Steve? Yeah. So obviously the more people that join, the more opportunity there are as groups to be able to be made. So almost think of it like almost like a forum where you can have your profile. You can go online. I've got a profile. I've made one as well within mainstream. And, I've got an ambassador badge on there as well, which is really, really cool to have as well. But also it's a great place to actually start building some relationships that go outside the scope of your work and go outside. Imagine it as more of a social network, but more attributed to what you're doing.
Yeah.
What I do like about it is the groups and how they can form, but they can only be formed if you sign up. Yeah. So if you are a reliability professional, get yourself on there, sign up. It's free. It's literally free.
Every month we'll send you the upstream publication.
Yeah.
It's got a bunch of really cool articles.
Yeah, and free information, right? How can you say no to that? Do you know what I mean? And these are the places I think that us reliability professionals need to be. We need to be in these networking places because, you meet a few people on there as well, and it widens your network. Do you know what I mean? Imagine that. We talked about peaks and troughs, didn't we? Imagine the industry doesn't do so well, and then you do need a job elsewhere. You've got a network there. Yeah. You can actually build in for your own personal growth as well.
The hundreds and hundreds of people who, as I said earlier, have found new gigs or found consulting
just from networking,
just from networking in a mainstream context.
100%. We don't do it enough, Steve. We don't. We need to network more. And in general, I get it. A lot of reliability maintenance managers are very kind of reserved, then the people, they are introverts. Yeah. But now's the time, and you don't have to turn into an extrovert overnight, but what we're saying is that we can do it in a controlled way, and you can have a presence, and it's going to benefit you, you know what I mean, within your career from where you start to where you finish as well. So
absolutely. I mean, one of the best networkers that I know who's been around forever, you might have read some of his stuff, is Krista Eidhammer, who's like the don of maintenance. Comes out of the paper industry. Idcon, which is his business that he built and sold recently, is our diamond or platinum sponsor. And Krista's doing a mini keynote to open the conference.
Oh, lovely. That'd be good to see what he says about that.
Exactly. And he does talk about that kind of stuff. There's so much goodness. And the one thing I wanted to say when you said earlier, say to your boss, I need a day off. With respect, it's not a day off. It's a day on.
Of learning.
In a massive, massive, massive way. You can have your head in a trench, fixing stuff, doing your work all year, but it takes that sort of a different
to come out of it from another perspective.
Turn your phone off and spend a day and a half just listening and talking.
Observing as well.
And thinking about the problems you've got and how you're going to solve them. And then you go back and you're so invigorated.
It goes down to that saying, though. You can't solve the same problem the same way of thinking. And sometimes you have to take yourself out of the process to be able to solve it externally. Do you know what I mean? And that is such a good saying for that particular line as well, because I do feel we get very insular with the processes that we're doing, and we get very in the problem. Yeah. Sometimes we have to find answers not inside there. They've got to come externally. Do you know what I mean?
We say you've got to take time to make time.
Take time to make time. I love that saying.
You've got to pull your head out and just take some time, because
just breathe.
Yeah, things will solve themselves for you.
Yeah.
If you get a different perspective sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. If you're searching for it and you're seeking, you're desperate for it. It's like trying to find your keys when they're right in front of you and you're really stressing. You can't see the keys.
No.
But if you're calm and you're like, right, do you know what? Maybe a bit late, but it's okay. Yeah. Right?
Suddenly there they are.
They appear, and then you're probably not going to be late.
Yeah.
So
it's my wife who finds them.
I know. To be fair, yeah, I know.
I can't see things that are stationary.
And I'm losing my stuff all the time. You know what I mean? But yeah, that goes from advice from me. You know, just chill, just take a deep. But it's just a good analogy. I feel sometimes people are so fixated within their own process that events like this, people probably do want to go to. They probably find. I mean, anyone that hears about mainstream is going to be interested in what we've just had to talk about. Yeah. But what is it going to take for them to actually make the move and buy a ticket? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So for me, it's about just, you know, whoever does listen to this, and I know a lot of maintenance professionals are. Do you know what I mean? We are going to link this below, and you know, really think about what we just said there about making time for this to be able to really save some time in the future. Because
the Aussies know the power of mainstream and they pay what they pay to come. We're charging 10 times less in the UK for mainstream.
It is very, very cheap, to be fair, in terms of the ticket cost.
You know, with all the international speakers and all the food and drink and whatever you're going to get, there's hardly anything left, but that's okay. We want people to see it once, because they'll always see value in the future. Yeah,
they'll come back. They have the experience and they'll come back.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, this has been such an insightful podcast. We usually do kind of 45 max, but we've gone over to 50, which is fine. Yeah, I know, because we just talk, and this is the problem when you're having fun. But guys, just want to say a huge thank you to Steve. We're going out tonight in Leeds, aren't we, to have a few drinks and stuff like that and network again. But I would like just to say, you know, Steve's a breath of fresh air. Since he reached out to us, I've kind of researched in terms of what he's doing and everything, and it does align with what we're doing, and we're really proud to be working alongside you. I've got to say thank you for your time.
Thanks for yours, and thanks for your advocacy and your support and the work you do.
Do you know what it is? It's hard to find authenticity through this game. It really is, Steve. And sometimes it is demoralising, because a lot of companies we're seeing is very sales, it's very much, and it's not really driven towards strategy or knowledge. It's driven towards selling a product. I get it, because business is business. But one reason why we are and we're doing this and we engage with it is the visions do align. And I do, honestly, when it is morally right to be able to do this, we will partner up and we will push it and we will promote it just as much as we feel is right. So keep doing what you're doing at Mainstream. Guys, all of the links and everything will be in below's podcast. Make sure you get yourself to the event if you can make it. We'll put everything in there. And thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. Fantastic. Really good to talk. Well, thanks for having me, and look forward to this evening.
Take care, Steve.
Thanks, brother.